Hey Aaron,
Hi Rick, how are you?
I'm all right. Here we are again.
Yeah, here we are again in the Just said happy holidays, viewers, and it's just past Christmas, not quite New Year, so we work on, rock on as usual.
Okay, yeah, very good. Yeah, so you asked for a slightly different session this time. You wanted to focus on tactics. Well, actually, you asked for three things, so we'll make three videos out of it. A warm-up position and
Yeah.
tactics. But before we get to the tactics, we also swapped some messages about a king and pawn endgame that you played. And
Yes.
it's an important king and pawn endgame, and we will cover that as well. So three things.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start. So with the warm up, yeah, I'm going to give you a position. It is, and I just would like to see what you make of it. It might be a bit above your level. It's not a tactic. It's more of a positional question, but I just would like to see what you can make of this, and then if you can't get to the solution, I will explain it. I definitely think you have the ability to explain or to understand what what the solution is, but see if you can make make anything of it. So this position, I drew two arrows. Black has just played knight b3, and my question is, you don't have to take on b3. You can also, I mean, it's attacking your rook on d2, so you can play the rook away. But if you want to take that knight, what is better, to take it with the bishop or take it with the knight? And I'm not looking for tactics. There's no checkmate or double attacks. It's more of a positional question. Which capture is better? Because one is clearly better than the other.
Okay, is it better to take with the knight?
Well, then you have to explain to me why is it better to take with the
Why?
knight? Because you have to,
Yeah,
yeah,
because if I take with the bishop on b3, it's facing the pawn chain. Of course, it can move to a4, but I'm not sure if this would be considered more as a closed position because of the d5, e6 pawns, and knights, I believe, are better in closed positions. So I thought take with the bishop.
okay, but is he going to leave your bishop alive? Is he just going to say, okay, you take my piece for free?
So he takes the
He
pawn.
he takes the pawn. Which pawn does he take?
He can take back with the c4 pawn.
Yeah, he has to take back. Of course, he has to recapture, right? Because otherwise, he just lost a piece. Because you were talking
Yeah,
about playing bishop a4.
yeah,
That would be great for white, but of course, black has to recapture the piece that he just lost. So he takes with the pawn. Yeah, and then we get this position.
yeah. And
And
then
he'll, yeah.
and then the knight. I'm just looking at where the knight can go.
Okay,
He,
sorry, I clicked it away.
yeah.
You're looking now where the
Uh,
knight can go. Okay.
so no, no, no. So the safe square is f3. Um,
Why do you want to play the knight?
I just looking at its options. Not exactly actually play, just seeing
Okay, where the knight could
where
go. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. Um, where would I move here? Like what I'm trying to think of like a middle game plan. What would I do?
Yeah.
Um, I can't really see anything jumping out at me. Um,
Okay.
so that's all I've got to say about that.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. And now, but okay. So now we looked at taking with the bishop, right? Um,
Yes.
but you said at the start you think taking with a knight is better. So let's look at that line. So what if we take with the knight? And just let's look at the position that arises from that.
Right. So if he takes back
Yeah, with
b3,
the pawn.
b3. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So the diagonal is to h7. Straight away, I think could I create some battery with the queen and then aim for h7. That's
Okay. And how would you go about setting up that battery? So what is your next move?
I could play queen to f3, aiming to get it to d3.
Okay. Did you check your checks, captures, and threats? What
No,
can
so
black?
his checks. So is there any checks?
Well, I just asked you play queen f3, but my question is before you make that move, did you check? Did you make sure black doesn't have any good checks, captures, or attack?
Oh, well, what came to mind is that I don't believe there was. Oh yeah, there's a capture here.
Which one?
Black can capture c2.
Yeah, exactly. And that just drops the bishop, right? So um, let's go back a few moves. So in this position, queen f3 is not a good move because you lose a piece, correct?
Yeah,
So what are your candidate moves here? What are you going to play with white if this was your position? Not
I'd
queen
move the
f3.
bishop.
Yeah, where do you move it to?
D3.
Yeah, exactly. That's the most active square for the bishop. I guess the only other alternative was d1, but that's less active. The bishop is nice here. Okay, and then I see it's not so easy to set up the battery, but it's good that your eye fell on it, um, and that you see that as a potential plan for the future if you ever get your pieces. I know you, for example, you could try and get just to make that thing work, play that rook to the center, then drop your bishop back to b1, and then get the queen to d3, and then you have that battery looking at a7. Uh, a lot will have to happen before you have that, but at least as a possible plan for the future, this is a sort of a setup you could try.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we looked at both variations, knight b3, and I asked you which one is better. So now that we have looked at the both lines, so we just to recap, we looked at knight takes b3, c takes b3, and bishop d3, because we have to save the bishop, and we also looked at the option of taking with the bishop, and then c takes b3, and here I guess you didn't really see an attacking plan. Did you? By the way, what would you, if you had to make a move here with white, what would you play here?
I'd move the rook on b1 to d1, double the rooks,
Yeah,
more
double
active
the rooks,
square.
get the rook a bit more active. Okay, all right, fine. So we looked at two lines after knight takes or bishop takes. Which of the two do you think is better?
I like taking the knight and then saving the bishop because I like the fact that it covers that diagonal. There's a lot of squares there,
Yeah, I
um,
like this.
and I like that.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, thanks for giving me your view and look at the lines. Um, the uh, the answer is that actually it is better to take with the bishop, and I'm going
Oh,
to explain to you now why. By the way, taking with the knight is not a blunder. Knight takes b3, c takes b3, bishop d3, and the position is about equal. And you're right. You might have something on the long diagonal, but maybe it's not so easy as we just saw to get that going. So maybe and black has also his pieces are nice. He just needs to which of in this line before we move on, which of black's pieces is not happy? Which of black's pieces needs to be improved?
well, the bishop's only looking at d5.
Exactly. This bishop is not happy. It is indeed looking at its own pawn chain, and it can't go anywhere else. And this bishop has a lot more range. So if we compare the bishops, black's bishop is worse than white's. But black has a plan, and I just showed you the plan for black. He can play a5 and then bishop a6. to activate the bishop and hope and maybe even trade the bishops off, and then that bishop will at least be activated. That's a plan for black.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the line if we take with the knight. Now let's see, because I told you taking with the bishop is better. So why is that better? Well, we take with the bishop, he has to recapture. And now we have this position. And as I said, it's not a tactical position. It's not that something suddenly white has a winning attack or checkmate or something, some tactic. But this is positionally. In this position, and this exercise really, Aran, was about it's not so important which pieces come off the board. It's more important which pieces remain on the board. And in this case, we have both queen and two rooks, but we have a knight versus a bishop. And if you answer the question, which of those pieces is a stronger piece? We know they're about worth 3 pawns each, but in this concrete position, which piece is better positioned?
The knight.
The knight. Exactly. Because the knight is on a beautiful square, actually. It cannot be chased away by a pawn. It cannot be attacked by black's minor piece, that bishop, because it's the bishop of the light squares. So it is actually beautifully placed. It's looking at lots of squares. I know it cannot jump to all these squares, but at least it is looking at them, and it has some influence on those squares. I know I'm just drawing the arrows. It's not that I'm saying some of those moves are good moves, but it's looking at all those squares while the bishop is still biting on granite. And in fact, sorry, rid of my arrows first. There is an attacking plan here for black, for white. In this position, a good move would be rook d3, and the plan is to move the rook to the king side, and we already threatening to take on h6 because the g pawn is pinned, and we're going to attack, and all black's pieces are on the queen side. So then I know you like to attack your opponent's king, but that's a plan here for white.
Yeah.
It's not that it's immediate mate in 4 or whatever, but it's black has to be careful, and he is a little bit worse. And the main reason he is worse is that his minor piece is inferior to white's minor piece.
Yeah. So piece activity then?
Exactly. Yeah. Piece activity, having happy pieces, having good pieces. That also applies in this position. And that's why, if we go back to the start, that's why, the knight, we don't want to lose our knight on d4. It's such a beautiful piece. And that's why taking with the bishop on b3 is better than taking with the knight.
Yeah. So take with the bishop, takes, and then return it back to the square to d. Oh, yeah. Take. Yeah.
And then rook b3 is the strongest move here. You swing the rook over. And then, of course, you need to get this guy into the game later as well. But that's a different story. That's just the follow-up plan. But the main thing is that you see here that the knight dominates the bishop. And black has to do some work to activate that bishop.
Yeah.
And just to go one little bit further, I just show you the plan. We looked at it in the other line, that black has a plan to activate the bishop, for example, with a5. And then he wants to play bishop a6. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And that would activate the bishop. But if we continue our plan, attacking, well, we're threatening now to take on h6. So black can play king f8 to at least take that threat out of the position. And the g-pawn is no longer pinned. Do you see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we still want to attack, for example, with h4. And then black says, well, I'm going to activate my bishop. I now also have a beautiful bishop. At least it has a nice diagonal now. But this is also something that we call in chess, it's hitting into thin air. On theory, on paper, it's a nice piece, that bishop, but there's nothing to attack. And as long as white doesn't put a piece on that diagonal, then that bishop is actually not doing that much. It's just standing pretty, but not doing too much. And white's attack continues. So that's sometimes you have a beautiful piece, but it's only beautiful on paper. It's actually not doing an awful lot. It's hitting thin air, as we call it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was quite an advanced concept. But any questions?
No.
Okay. Do you understand what we just went through?
Yeah. Piece activity and the knight being central. Obviously, the bishop looking at d5, the pawn obviously has a plan, but it doesn't amount to much. Moving it to a6, moving the rook over. There was a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so if you want to take on b3, it's not so much which piece that I want to take with, it's more which piece do I want to keep. In this case, you want to keep that knight on d4 because it's a beautiful piece. So that's why we want to take with the bishop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.